Chancellor, in his delightful book, I Can Read With My Eyes Shut, Dr. Seuss advises his young readers, the more things you read, the more things you'll know. The more things you know, the more places you'll go. A metaphorical statement about the power of reading to fuel the imagination, expand the mind, and broaden horizons. And a very literal recognition of the fundamental importance of reading. Most of us take for granted this completely unnatural and complex cognitive process, but there was no hyperbole involved when the late former UN Secretary General, Mr. Kofi Annan, stated, "Literacy is a bridge from misery to hope. It is a tool for daily life in modern society. It is a bulwark against poverty and a building block for development, an essential component to investments in roads, dams, clinics, and factories." For Mrs. Paula Lucy Smith, a National Scholarship winner from St. Joseph's Convent, Port of Spain, the fundamental impact of low-level literacy was revealed during her 4 years as a high school teacher. Armed with a Warwick University degree in history and a University of Leicester certificate in education, she was eager to see all of her students succeed and enthusiastically sought to engage parents where necessary. To her surprise, some parents of struggling students appeared to have little or no interest in meeting with her. She eventually realized that many of them were non-readers, actively avoiding her for fear of discovery and because of their own negative experiences with school. They were among an estimated 24% of adults in Trinidad and Tobago who struggle with even basic reading. And without intervention, their children and their children's children were on their way to joining them. In 1990, Paula took action. Having left the teaching service to start a family, she enrolled in a short Ministry of Education UNESCO training course for volunteer adult literacy teachers. Later that year, she and a fellow tutor faced the challenge of teaching their first class of about 20 people with no teaching materials. With much creativity, more reading, and help from experts in education, dyslexia, and linguistics, they managed to come up with a structure. In 1992, she formed the Adult Literacy Tutors Association, ALTA, with the modest aims of bringing tutors together to share ideas and materials and to direct students to teachers in their areas. Now, anyone who knew Paula Lucy Smith could bet that it would not stop there. With single-minded focus, endless energy, and persistence, and mindful of her mother's mantra that the worst thing in the world is a selfish person, Paula gave her all to ALTA. For 26 years, she has been the unrelenting, unstoppable, and apparently unsleeping driving force, moving ALTA from 2 people operating out of her house to a highly respected, internationally recognized organization that has now trained hundreds of tutors in Trinidad and Tobago, St. Vincent, Antigua, and Grenada. ALTA offers the only comprehensive, structured adult literacy program in Trinidad and Tobago. There are free twice-weekly classes with embedded life skills at 50 venues, over 300 volunteers, and over 1,500 students annually. In addition to community classes and reading circles, ALTA extended to school, workplace, and prison literacy programs. As ALTA CEO, Mrs. Lucy Smith presided over and was a major contributor to the building of a comprehensive body of knowledge and the development of ALTA's novel teaching materials. These include more than 60 published books, learning aids such as phonic and rule cards, games, and graded reading books, and the first local educational board games. ALTA keeps abreast and often ahead of the field through regular review of materials, tools, and strategies, as well as through Paula's constant research into core strategies from elsewhere that can be adapted for Caribbean learners. In addition to her selfless diligence, vision, persistence, and intellectual input, Paula provided at least 2 other things that helped to make ALTA what it is today. The first is her refusal to waste resources. Her firm belief in recycle, reuse, and reduce has seen ALTA through many a lean period. The second is that her unwillingness to give up extends to people. With infinite compassion and the patience of a saint, whether it is an ALTA staff member, a tutor, or a student, Paula doesn't give up on people, even when urged to do so for her own sanity. It is her nature to be drawn to those who are less than 100% and to direct her energy where it is most needed. Paula's and ALTA's good work have not gone unnoticed. They have earned several national and international awards and other forms of recognition, including the Hummingbird Gold Medal for Service and selection by UNESCO as a model for adaptation and replication worldwide. Never seeking accolades for herself, Paula is quick to credit the army of volunteer tutors, teacher trainers, coordinators, program developers and administrators, the students and their families, individual and corporate sponsors, partners, supporters, and the long list of mentors and experts she learned from. Chancellor, time does not allow me time to list all of them, but I must mention the unwavering support of her husband, William, her 3 daughters, and Catherine Kelshaw of the Dyslexia Association. Chancellor, I present Paula Jeanne Lucy Smith, adult literacy educator and activist, a bulwark against poverty and a bridge from misery to hope for so many, the best thing in the world, an unselfish person. I ask that by the authority vested in you, by the Council and Senate of the University of the West Indies, you confer on her the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa.
By the authority vested in me by the Council and Senate of the University of the West Indies, I present to you the Doctor of Laws, honoris causa of the University of the West Indies. Congratulations. I now call on Dr. Lucy Smith to address the company.
Good morning, everyone. Special good morning to Chancellor Robert Bermudez, Vice Chancellor Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, and Pro-Vice Chancellor Professor Brian Copeland, and all invited guests. It is a great privilege to join the ranks of the graduates this morning, and I extend my sincere thanks to the University of the West Indies for the conferral of this honor. I also extend congratulations to the graduates. For each of you, today celebrates the achievement of a goal, but a goal often set by others or by expectations. From now on, you choose. When in 1990 I chose to work as a volunteer adult literacy tutor, it was in line with what I'd done before, but I found myself on my own, without curriculum, without books, with adult learners looking to me to teach them to read, and other volunteers expecting me to teach them to teach. I faced a new choice: go back to teaching at a school, or make a new path in adult literacy. Almost 3 decades later, what do I see as the key to forging a new path? On his visit to Trinidad some years ago, author Richard Gerver made a statement that has stayed with me. He said that to change an underperforming school, you need a vision powerful enough to engage people. Should you decide to make a new path, this is what you need: a vision powerful enough to engage people. For a powerful vision and purpose that they believe in, people will work hard, some without pay. 2018 marks the 25th anniversary of ALTA, and for our new tutors to understand ALTA's heritage and culture, tutors who had over many years given more than classroom teaching spoke about their ALTA experience. I was surprised that tutor after tutor said the same thing. They got a phone call from Paula to ask them to take on more than they had signed on for. And they said, yes. Yes to conducting the first National Literacy Survey, and thus trekking across ravines, up steep slopes in parts unknown, and entering houses unknown. Yes to risking personal safety to teach youth in hotspots, with no regrets, despite lying on the floor as bullets flew around the building. Yes to coming back to volunteer when they had definitely done their bit. What made them say yes, though they didn't intend to? What made them say yes again and again? They said yes because they believed in ALTA and in its higher purpose, trusting that what they were asked to do was important and would bring positive change, knowing that they wouldn't be on their own, that we would be doing this together. ALTA has been able to engage high-caliber people as tutors, staff, board members, and partners. ALTA's vision is powerful enough to engage people. So the doctorate may be in my name, but it's shared by some 3,000 tutors and 15,000 students. If our students didn't take that scary step into an ALTA class, there would be no ALTA. Although you are at the top of the education ladder, an ALTA student's on the first rung. An ALTA certificate is much like the certificate you receive today. Both represent the culmination of effort and sacrifice. However, the level of effort and sacrifice is probably greater for an ALTA student because you chose your field of study to match your strengths and aptitudes. ALTA students have to study what they are not good at, what they have no aptitude for. The fact that you are here graduating, especially from a language-based field, means that your brain came wired for literacy. Consider what your life would be like if written words just didn't make sense. The UWI and ALTA certificates both engender a sense of accomplishment and pride. What is different is that ALTA has no public graduation like this. Why? Because our society wrongly equates literacy with intelligence, failing to understand that reading and thinking are two different skills. When we recognize that a beginner reader is not a beginner thinker, then ALTA students need not just be privately proud, but also publicly proud of their achievements. An ALTA certificate, let's do it. An ALTA certificate opens a new world to our students, the vast and wonderful world of the printed word that has surrounded and frustrated them for years. Like an ALTA certificate, your degree opens a new world to you. What will you choose? What vision will engage you? Or will you create a vision to engage others? As a child of independence, when I left university, I was fully engaged by the powerful vision of nation building. So were many of my friends. I taught at senior comp, friends worked in the hospital, state enterprise, ministries. Sooner or later, we all left, and for the same reason. Decisions were governed by votes at the next election. Politics invaded, to erode the integrity and quality of the nation's institutions and made our efforts futile. Here's one example from education. The abolition of the common entrance exam was announced by Basdio Pandey on a political platform in Princestown. He declared that he would put an end to the 11+ trauma. Politics was the driver of universal secondary education. In early 2000, before the first StA exam, the chief education officer asked to meet to discuss what ALTA could offer to those in education, because they were well aware that several thousand students were not literate and would be entering secondary school. ALTA submitted a proposal and mobilized. No word came. In the 18 years since, ALTA has built a national adult literacy program and a youth lit program for under 16s. As ALTA stuck firmly to our course, a stream of initiatives in education came and went, as each was about the big launch, not implementation. Politics again. 18 years later, students continue to enter secondary schools, barely able to read, and exit 5 years later with the same low literacy. But now, with an entrenched feeling of being outside of society, anger pervades our secondary schools. Anger wrought by extreme frustration. Why else would teens place their school feed and lunch on the overhead fans to interrupt the secondary education so prized by their parents? What did the group of teens who set fire to their school have in common? Not one of them could read. Without provision for those with no aptitude for literacy, universal secondary education is destroying trust in our schools and eroding belief in the value of education. Our schools no longer engage people. Why didn't we say no when a politician dictated education policy? In the early 1970s, Finland had an underperforming education system. Then they took education out of politics. They embarked on a long-term policy to develop a professional body of educators, and then, very importantly, then turned over the decisions to the teachers. Finland is rated among the highest in the world in innovation, entrepreneurship, and creativity. More than 40 years ago, the Finns recognized that there is no place for politics in education. Isn't it time we took politics out of education and out of other areas? Since independence, successive governments have taught us that we can neither trust their vision nor their purpose. Our politicians fail to engage us. So why? Why do we look to government to lead and to bring positive change? It is time to be independent, to look to ourselves to effect positive change. It is time to build alternatives that are independent of government. ALTA is one such alternative. It can be done. I leave you with a quote from Clarissa Pinkola Estes, which captures the ALTA experience. What is needed for dramatic change is an accumulation of acts, adding to, adding more, continuing. We know that it does not take everyone on earth to bring justice and peace, but only a small, determined group who will not give up during the first, second, or 100th gale. Be among that small, determined group who will not give up. Thank you.